All right, guys, the Flexible here with the ATG Lower Back Ability Program. So this is probably going to be the most comprehensive low back program you've ever seen because we're gonna hit everything. There's nothing left unturned in this program. So we get a lot of questions from a lot of our members. Obviously Ben is known for knees, but there's a lot we can do to help with your back pain as well. So we're gonna start here. I'm gonna go over, you're gonna do 2 different workouts in a week, and you're gonna do each one 2 days a week with some stretching. So we'll start with your Monday, Thursday. You're gonna start with the 90-90 internal, external rotation stretches. So I'm gonna use Derek to show the 90-90 position. It's gonna look exactly like it sounds. So it's called the 90-90 position because both knees should be in a 90-degree angle, okay? It's really simple. We're gonna start with the variation that stretches the external hip capsule first, so the outside of the hip and the glutes. So what Derek's gonna do, he's actually gonna turn towards his front leg. So where Derek wants to feel this stretch is right on the outside of this front hip, okay? The more you turn into that leg and kind of rotate this way, the more you're gonna feel the stretch on the outside of the hip. So you might have to play around with the position a little bit. Just make sure that this front leg, you're getting in the outside of the hip. It's really that simple. You're gonna hold it for 3 minutes. You're gonna just breathe, relax, in through your nose, out through your max, and don't go into a maximal stretch to start the stretch. You just wanna get into a place where it's just a little uncomfortable, and you wanna breathe and work your way and just relax into it deeper and deeper. Don't try to force it. All right, so he's gonna do that for 3 minutes. Then here comes the sticky position that I want to talk about a little bit more, which I don't think we've really addressed that much in our programs, or people address at all, but I think is actually the most important position and flexibility needed for anybody, including definitely athletes. So if Derek just wants to relax for a minute, he doesn't actually have to do the stretch. I want to talk about a little bit about internal hip rotation. So the biggest thing you see these days is everyone cues knees out, hips out, like everything's very much here, okay? I think it's probably the most overused cue of all time, okay? Most people, the reason that cue exists is because when people were squatting, when they squat down, their knees collapse in, okay? So if you're one of those guys that for whatever reason, when you squat and your knees collapse in this bad, then it might work for you to keep thinking about rotating the knees out so the hips go over the knees. But one of the biggest things that your hips also need to be able to do is actually rotate in. And a lot of people can't actually rotate their hip in, so what they experience is knee valgus and they get pain on the inside of their knee. So if your hips can't rotate, other joints that aren't as built as much for rotation, hence like your knee, is gonna try to do the rotation for you. So you're gonna get a lot of pain and discomfort in the inside of that knee when your hip can't rotate in. The other reason it's super important, because if you're an explosive athlete, and you're already externally rotated, you can't generate power from the outside of your hips. So if you're trying to change direction or move laterally or do any movement like that, you're already in its end range, so you can't create a whole lot of power. If you're starting from internal rotation, you can actually use the glutes and push out more, so you can actually generate more power from the hips. Not only that, when you're squatting, or when you're going into hip flexion, so when the hips bend like this, the hips actually have to internally rotate. So the way anatomically that your hips are designed is when you go past 90 degrees, so when you're past this position, the hips actually have to rotate in, otherwise you jam up the hip capsule and the bones don't move inside the hip capsule. So you're grinding your hip capsule. Now because training in the United States comes predominantly from powerlifting, that cue only works for a powerlifting style squat when you're super wide. You want to focus on keeping the hips out. But as soon as you go past 90 degrees, the hips actually have to rotate in. So if you see a lot of Olympic weightlifters, people, they catch and people see that their hips are like in like this. That's because when you're that deep in a squat, your hips actually need to be able to rotate in. And a lot of people can't rotate their hips in. So we're going to show you a stretch that's going to allow you to open up that range and get internal rotation. So now Derek's going to turn towards his back leg. So Derek's actually going to rotate towards his back leg. So this is a very interesting sensation that you're going to get. Where you want to feel this is, you're going to feel it deep inside the hip capsule. Okay, so a lot of people are going to feel it kind of across here, like the piriformis and glute medius, but you might also feel it underneath inside the hip capsule. We just want to make sure that anywhere the joint is closing angle, so right here would be where the hip and the femur come in. If you feel pinching on top of there, then you're gonna, one thing Derek will be able to do is maybe lean away. So he could lean away a little bit so he can actually focus on getting that hip to rotate in. So if you're feeling blocked up here, you can lean away, or the other option would be you can straighten out this leg. That's gonna allow you to keep your torso more upright. So, so he can focus on that. And as you can see, he can really, actually turn this way. Yeah, there we go. He actually wants to focus on being able to turn this hip inwards like that. Good. So that would be your other 3-minute hold. So again, this one's gonna feel pretty gnarly inside the hip there. So just, again, don't go to a maximal stretch. If you feel like something's jammed up, try to play with your torso position a little bit, your chest, and kind of move it around and see if you can free up this hip if you can't stay totally upright facing this hip. But the biggest thing is our external rotation was towards the front. On this one, we actually want to rotate towards the back leg. Because as we rotate this way, the hip rotates this way. If he rotates like this, well then now this hip isn't going to get the stretch you need. So he actually wants to keep his chest twisted towards the back leg for the internal rotation. So again, you're going to feel that way deep in there, but it's super important range of motion to have. Not only that, you see a lot of guys that walk around like this because their hips, they have no internal rotation, so when they walk with their feet out. So you want to be able to walk with your feet in. Your hips have that ability to rotate in and rotate out. It's super important. So with that, we open up with that because whether your hips are rotating properly is going to have a big impact on the rest of your exercises. So then we're going to move into stretching your quads. All right? So couch quad, 2 minutes on each side. Okay.
If you look over here, I've prepared the setups that we found to work. So if you take like your yoga mat or something, I basically prepared to show that if you put your knee all the way back and your foot up against the wall, this is going to be like a tougher version.
Because your ankles are probably going to be your limitation here.
If you see here,
so if you don't have the ankle mobility like Ben has, full flexibility of his shin.
Yep.
If you didn't have that, which a lot of guys don't, they're going to feel it mostly there, so they won't be able to get the quad.
Then right here.
So then you can use the bench.
So we typically have people start here.
Yeah, typically.
And then work towards the wall. And I also brought this over just to show that while getting into this stretch, you can use this because we don't want to be just leaning forwards.
Then the quad isn't at maximal stretch when you're hinged forward.
Now say I'm in this position, right? Because as you saw, I can do shoulders to wall, but I can also sit here in the easy version and get an amazing stretch. So what am I doing? What am I thinking about that allows me to still get a stretch no matter how I do this?
So the biggest focus that people will miss out on a lot is really making sure that the back glute of the stretched leg is activated. So in this case, he's squeezing
here I don't feel any stretch. It looks similar, I feel no stretch. There I feel a stretch.
That one little detail is going to make a difference in this stretch. So you want to extend the hip by squeezing your glute, okay? So that's going to be the biggest takeaway for the couch stretch. Really use that glute, strengthen that glute isometrically to push the hips forward and stretch out the quads. So that's going to allow you to get the most out of that stretch.
Okay, perfect.
Then we're going to go to the upright lunge, 90 seconds each side. This is going to hit your hip flexor. So the hip flexor is really the only muscle that attaches your lower body to your upper body. It attaches from the femur into the lumbar spine. So basically, any tension there, which most people have because they sit all day, can do a whole lot, especially to your low back. So we did a couch quad before because also the flexibility of the quad can limit how well you can get into the hip flexor. So then we would go into an upright lunge. Again, the same cues for the quad stretch apply here. You're not doing anything unless you're engaging your glute. Okay, so in this case, Ben's going to squeeze.
So I opened up here. There's a lot of people. Yep. We went over this. The reason we did the quad first, if this is tight, then it can be hard to actually get up here. And this is what we're really trying to fix for the back. So like he said, I'm squeezing.
Squeeze, and then
the glute.
As you can see, with the glute engaged, the low back stays relatively neutral. He doesn't hyperextend his low back to to
rather
push
than
the stretch
here
forward.
or here.
Right.
All you really have to do is just
Squeeze your glute.
engage. You just engage the glute and you pull yourself.
Yeah, almost just use the glute to push the hip. Think about pushing it down towards, kind of forward and down, like an escalator.
Now this, someone probably could use a stool.
Yeah, you could use a stool because again, 90 seconds is a long time, so you're gonna get tired through your upper back and stuff, so it'll just help keep your position so you don't start to lean forward and round forward.
And with the front one, if I stand too close, it'll probably just stop.
Yeah, you'll be
right?
limited.
Like,
So
limited, but
90 degrees are actually usually is better in the front knee
yeah, if you reach it forward a little bit, that then gives you more room.
to push the hip
Pull
down.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
As you get
pull
super flexible through the hip flexor, really all you want to do is keep working that front leg forward. So the more forward that leg is, the more range your back leg can get.
And I would say this sequence of 3 stretches alone, we've seen get rid of back pain.
Back
many
pain,
times. So-
knees, shoulders even, because it can pull everything forward. So good. So those are your stretches to start the Monday, Thursday workout. Then we're going to go straight into the superset of D1, D2, which is your ATG split squat. So we'll show that one first. The standard for this is to eventually do 20% flat ground split squat would be the long-term target for this.
Also this one.
But we're going to do 4 sets of 12 reps. So
For good morning next.
Ben will show the split squat. He's the king of split squats. No one's done more split squats in their lifetime than Ben.
I mean, probably on earth. But
Yeah.
so he was saying, so your target is flat ground, and we try to achieve this on a number of programs.
Yeah.
But if you see the back knee,
Right.
that shows how flexible the hip flexor is.
Yeah.
So say I wasn't flexible enough that my back knee had to touch, that would mean this hip flexor is too tight. So what to look out for with your back, those people can get into trouble if the hip flexor is super tight and they're trying to go too low, it can do more harm than good. So I showed, you want to really start, staying on the tippy toe keeps you engaged. You want to really start at a level that you can keep that back glute engaged. So here, to show the glute, just as we were doing with the other stretches, right? You're staying, I'm not relaxing or avoiding the stretch.
Again, this is one of the biggest reasons that I found that people don't progress in the split squat. So as you can see, Ben here, if he's on multiple boxes and his hamstring can cover his calf completely, your restriction is not the ankles. I get that question all the time. People think that it's their ankle mobility, which is if you can do this on an upper box, like a box stack like this, it's not your ankles. It's your hip flexor that's limiting you. So you want to focus on squeezing that glute and think about pulling that leg behind you, make sure that glute is really extended. A lot of people get lazy through the glute, so they kind of just drop down. There's no tension here whatsoever. You want to use that glute and think about pulling the leg behind you. You can see the difference there.
And that's why I'd say with a good regression, even someone super advanced, you can still feel it right.
Oh, for sure.
Like I can
Yeah,
still, if I engage the right things,
Yeah.
even though I can do flat ground,
Yeah.
I can still feel the hip flexor stretch.
You still get a
I can
stretch.
still get a proper workout with that.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the split squat. Then from there,
Derek's already set up right here.
oh, good. You're set up. So we go to the seated good morning. So seated good morning, same thing. What you'll notice is bars, on the traps, like a high bar position. Thoracic spine's engaged, and then he's going to try to go down, like upper back, touch his chest to the bench. And again, this is another one of those positions where when you get to the very bottom, so if you show Derek, the hips actually need to rotate in to give space. If Derek tried to keep his hips way out, like if he really tried to force his hips out, so go down and try to keep your force. See, he can't hit as deep, and now the low back has to round for him to get into that deep position. So you actually want the legs, the hips to be able to rotate in a little bit when you go all the way down.
You're also going to notice that Derek has fairly long legs, over 6 feet tall. So we want, his hip joint is so low. Go ahead, I'll put this one under your glutes. All right, and then one right here. So by lifting up your bench a little bit, that looks like a little bit more comfortable. He could even put more than that at the hip. You can see, I mean, this is a good visual. You can see a lot of times tall guys can't get into this, right? I mean, look, I'm gonna look like the worst person ever, even though I have a great seat. Good morning, if my knee is too high. So when in doubt, elevate your hips more to get into it.
Yeah, 'cause
And then-
if your knees are already up past your hips, you're gonna have trouble hitting the set. So.
Yeah. And then Depth goal for this one is getting those abs to the bench while while having the chest not touch. So there would be chest touching the bench. We're talking, this is where we're getting into, boom, right there.
Exactly.
That's where we're really getting into it. Protected back because again, our ability programs are not how do we avoid doing anything in life. How do we run, jump, squat,
Right.
do the things we want to do. And so if you look at your squat, you start getting into that where you're either going to be there or you're going to.
Right.
And so now that's affecting, even a messed up back is now affecting how much you can build your leg. It's all connected.
Yeah, because if you can't stay upright in your back, you can't use your quads on the bottom of the squat. You're going to go into the hips. So, that's another reason why guys they don't squat with their quads. I know just the way it is. So, good. So then now, here we'll go back. Now we're going to move into some upper body. So a lot of people are like, well, that's my lower back. Why are we doing upper body? Well, because the biggest reason is that, yes, there are people out there with weak low backs, but what is more often than not is not only do they lack mobility, they're usually only strong in one range in their low back. Guys that deadlift a lot and even squat a lot, they actually have strong low backs. They just have a really strong low back here. They don't have a strong low back in any other position. So the other reason that people have low back is because their upper back has no flexibility. So, the difference between me extending or arching my upper back is think about like lifting my chest up, and you should see the shoulders kind of down and back. That's thoracic extension, that's upper body. A lot of guys don't have that. So if you're getting into a squat position here, you're getting ready to drop and bend the knees. But if you don't have that and you're stuck here, the only thing that can bend is your low back. So a lot of pressure goes into the low back if you can't distribute the force through your upper back as well. So that's why we have upper back. If your upper back, you have your neck, your cervical, and you have your thoracic, and then you have your lumbar. So if you're jammed up here and this doesn't move, the only things that's going to move are your neck and your low back. And your thoracic spine is actually made to bend. Maybe not to that extreme, but it's made to extend and round. Your lumbar spine, not so much. So that's why the upper back flexibility is super important if you have some issues with the low back, because most guys just use the low back too much. They don't have the flexibility to the upper back. So the first one, stretch, 90 seconds on each side, is called open book. So what Derek's going to do, he's going to get into some hip flexion here. Basically just knees and hips are at 90 degrees. So that's going to keep the low back, not rounded, but pretty neutral. And then from here, what he wants to think about doing is actually rotating around and opening up. So the biggest things we want to focus on is he's actually thinking about using his upper back to pull and rotate around. Okay, so again, if you can't rotate your upper back, you're going to try to rotate from your lower back. Again, your lower back is not supposed to rotate. All rotation should come from your upper back. So, I get a lot of people who are like, oh, I've known Russian twists or whatever with the medicine ball and my back hurts. Well, it's because you have no mobility through your upper back, so you try to do it all with your lower back. What might happen is sometimes the knees and everything are want to rotate if you're super tight. If that's the case, Derek can use this arm to try to hold the knee down as he opens up and goes sideways. Some people might even get a stretch to the outside of the glutes. So you might get glutes, you might get like QL low back, you're going to feel pec, delt. You're going to feel it basically across the whole front part of your body. So then you would do 90 seconds, and then you would just flip over, do 90 seconds on the other side. And if you need to, you can put like a yoga block or something under your head so you're not like trying to hold your neck up, so it's a little bit more comfortable. Then from there, once we open up a little bit of the rotation in the front of the body, we're going to go into incline dumbbell fly. Again, this we're doing for a lot of reps. 10% of your body weight is going to be plenty for multiple sets of 12. So Ben's going to show the incline dumbbell fly. All right, so again, you want to focus on really just think about spreading the chest open, really opening up the front of the pecs and the delt. The guys on the computer a lot, on your phone, whatever, shoulders are pulled forward. So if your shoulders are pulled forward, you can't extend your upper back. So if you just normalize that posture a little bit, you can open up your upper back and take some of the pressure away from the low back. So here we do 12 reps. As you can see, he's going out. Really focus on, when you get to the end of your range, squeeze those shoulders back, and And then push the dumbbells up. And the other thing you'll notice on this is where his elbows stay in relation to the movement. So his elbows basically stay in line with his ears. Okay, you don't want to drop it too low because then it becomes
People will go here.
Yeah, they'll
and
drop-
make a mistake
they'll drop way
and
down.
miss the actual tight
right.
part of the
You want to
upper back.
get through here. That's where you're going to be the tightest.
And the elbows are slightly bent.
Yeah.
And 10% on this means no more than 10%.
Right.
That doesn't mean try 10% the first workout. Start with 5%.
Don't get all Arnold on us
But
with 80
I
pounds.
did maybe 5 of those, and I feel incredible right now.
Yeah.
Because modern lifestyle just has us like this.
Yeah. He's on the computer
A
from
lot.
dawn till dusk and more. So, answering your questions. So, that would be incline dumbbell fly. Cool. Now, once we open up the front of the chest and the body and the shoulders here, then we get into some rows. See, I see a lot of guys that like just prescribe rows if you're having problems with your back or upper back or your posture in general. But the problem is if this is all tight and strong, which it usually is, because not only do we sit all day, but a lot of guys like to bench press, then trying to even pull the shoulders back is impossible. So you're gonna still, when you row, you're still gonna row, you're gonna row like this, you're not gonna row like this, and that's a big difference. So then we go into the body weight row. We have the rings set up here. You can do rings, you can do TRX strap or TRX handles if you have them. The other option is, I mean, these are cheap, these are what, like,
What's interesting is that rings are super cheap,
Yeah.
but gyms are more likely to have a power rack or even a Smith machine.
Right.
So you can just, if you know you can do a certain height, so with this, as you walk back, so this would require very little difficulty,
Right.
but you can stand forward, and in the case of rings, as I lower this down,
yeah.
and as my body moves closer to parallel, so now like here it would be much tougher, right? But because I've opened up my pec, I can really.
And as you can see too, see here his glutes are engaged, all the movement's coming from his upper back. That's the biggest mistake you'll see on these, is people will be super relaxed with here, and they don't have the flexibility here, so they'll either round up, or they'll really arch their back like this when they pull. So you want to keep the glutes engaged and then squeeze.
Yeah, if you actually see my fingers over here, most people cannot hold their fingers at their ribs.
Right.
Which shows that no matter how hard they try to strengthen, as Jeff
Right,
said,
exactly.
until you're flexible enough, you can't
pull back
strengthen
and
that. Right.
See, that's a big, that's rear delts, that's
Perfect.
traps, that's whatever, versus like shoulders being forward and hunched.
Versus just a lot of lat
Basically
bicep.
all lat and bicep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily wrong for certain cases, but in the case if you just don't have the flexibility or range, it's a good thing to get.
And then since we were just putting this together, before we go to the next one, just to make sure you realize we're saying on this program, don't go past 20% each hand. Split squat, don't go past 40% on good morning. These are goals though, and I really wanted to make it clear that like with the seated good morning, there's absolutely nothing wrong with just getting the lower back condition to the movement.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with going like this, but there's no such thing as people saying, I can't do a seated good morning. I can't do. We've even done, I've had ladies in here, 80 years old, with a, right here. This is better for them than continue to sit all day long and just avoid them. So the scalabilities is very important. With the seated good morning, you would go from, and that's kind of like, I actually had to, for my knees, I actually had to figure stuff out. I couldn't just do the things I was supposed to be able to do. So I understand for someone with their back, you can't necessarily just do the things that you're wanting to do. So seated good morning would basically be like, by adding your hands, it gets to be some more weight, and then you could just hold a plate at your chest, and then you could progress to like a small bar. So you don't just jump right in at a bar. If you think the bar is too tough, you can progress.
You're gonna weight vest.
Yeah, and then with the split squat, using assistance, you can go inside a power rack, use assistance, then body weight, and then holding dumbbells. Same thing even on like incline flies and stuff.
Sure.
A lot of guys, well, because this is in your back, you probably have shoulder pain as well. You can start very light.
Give your best friend a hug. That might even start, come here, buddy.
And then same with the row. You can start it really high, because a lot of people will say, so you have the tightness, right? But now we open it up. but people will still think that they're too tight to do it, but they're actually not. They're so tight that they're actually super weak in this ring. There's guys who can pull so much to here, but not to here.
Right.
And that's why that row is actually key for top speed, because of how much guys are weak in that range. So basically, guys will assume, oh no, I'm strong, I just can't get that.
Right.
Well, we already opened up, probably can get it, but you might have to really start up higher on your row to realize the level you get. Derek, we used to always see that with face pull.
It's true. People
The
pull
guy
a lot
with-
of heavy weight.
Guys would say, oh, my arms just don't go that far.
true.
But we would, usually superset that with something, and then they actually could, but they'd have to start really light.
Yeah.
So I think that's, we showed how you can work your way. If you think you can't do the couch stretch, if you think you can't do split squat, if you think you can't do good morning, so you can start, that's the whole point. Start on this stuff and focus on just a little bit of progression. Now,
Day 2.
these 3,
Yeah.
you're doing before the next workout, okay? The same 3 hip stretches, and then now Jeff will start going into the exercises for Tuesday, Friday.
So Tuesday, Friday's workout, we're gonna start with Jefferson curl, 5 sets of 5 reps, no more than 25% body weight ever. And the goal for this is wrists below toes. Now I know a lot of you guys have seen Ben and I and Derek do Jefferson curls with a lot of weight. We do that purely just to show that we can do it. I don't ever actually train a Jefferson curl with that weight. If I do 25% in each hand, I get plenty out of this exercise. I don't need to go much more than that. It's not about maximally lifting with your back inflection or rounded. It's about just being able to do it, period. Just having the mobility. So we'll use Ben to show the Jefferson curl.
Derek's gonna show this.
Oh, Derek's going to show the Jefferson curl. Sorry. So Derek's going to show the Jefferson curl. So let's show him body weight first, because the most important thing about the Jefferson curl is it's not a hip hinge. And so a lot of people, again, because they have no awareness or mobility in their spine, they just push the hips back to start the movement, which is not actually what you want to do. It's called a Jefferson curl because you want to curl down. So Derek's going to start. Neck rolls down, shoulders protracted, actually come forward and wrap around. He can relax his arms. You want to think about just rolling down, one vertebrae at a time. And then from the bottom up, you want to think about squeezing your glutes or extending your hips. And then think about really like forcefully tucking your tailbone under. And as you can see, his spine comes up one after the other, nice and rounded. He can return to his natural neutral position at the top, extended, and then start again with the neck. Shoulders forward, relax the arms, and as you can see, all the way down, his back's nice and rounded. You can see his hips aren't pushed too far behind his ankles, all right? And then on the reverse again, really tuck the tailbone underneath, and you'll feel all this kind of spread out. So a lot of guys with back pain are just so freaking tight through the low back here that this is gonna really like decompress and allow your pelvic, your hips to sit more neutral, so you're not gonna have tension in your low back all the time. So then we'll let Derek now show you with a bar. I think this is like 10 kilos. So, all the cues apply is just really everything wraps forward. He's going down, nice rounded position. You want to really squeeze your quads and use your hip. Think about using your hip flexors. Use your abs to crunch down and pull you into the bottom of the position to lengthen the hamstring. All right? And then on the way up, he's squeezing the glutes, which is going to engage the hamstrings, engage the glutes, and then of course, he probably feels a stretch. I'll let him tell you, but you basically, even a lot of guys too, like, you almost have too much tension here from doing so much pulls that you'll find that, wow, actually opening up like the middle traps a little bit and wrapping these shoulders forward is going to do a lot for your back as well. So some guys even feel like a stretch up through the neck, the traps, all the way through the middle traps, and of course through the low back, hamstrings, calves even, so it hits the whole back of the body from neck down to the ankles. So that's the Jefferson curl.
Definitely one of my favorite mobility stretches, man. You get everything, like you said, the calves, hamstrings, upper and lower back.
So this will pretty much do it all for you. Again, 5 sets, 5 reps, nice and slow, okay? So it should be about 5 seconds down or so. Then from there, Ben is gonna show us the hanging L-sit. So if you'll notice, the hanging L-sit, now the hamstrings and the low back are opened up. Now he can pull his knees up, his low back is in flexion, and now he can really use his abs and his hip flexors to hold the knees up.
This is gonna be an epic video. Go ahead.
So the other bonus with the hanging L-sit is that when the hips are in flexion at 90 degrees, the lats are actually maximally stretched. So a lot of guys actually have really tight lats. They have no overhead mobility. The lats attach from the shoulder into the low back. So when the lats elongate and stretch out, it can also take away from tension you might be feeling in your low back. Because remember, they're extenders, so if your lats are tight, they're going to pull you back like this. So stretching them out will allow you to, again, neutralize your posture.
And this is one to be really strict on, because like I've noticed for guys, say your hip flexor's weak, then in life you end up things that you should be able, in sports, be able to lift your knee. You end up trying to use your back.
Use your back. Yep.
In a strange position. So we're rehabilitating all that stuff. You're going to be able to go here. You're going to be able to use your back. So you want strong hip flexors, but the nature of low cable pulling, different other kind of leg raises can actually be too rough on your back right now. So this is a strict one that does a lot of good for your back without any risk of stressing you when you're not ready for that stress yet. So this hanging bent knee version is where it's at for a hip flexor.
Yeah, exactly.
And it looks like Derek's ready for the next one.
So then we go to your next superset, which is your QL. Your QL, we'll have Derek stand first. Your QL is your quadratus lumborum, so it's part of the low back musculature. It kind of runs, you have your erectors and they kind of run from the hips up into the ribs at an angle. So what the muscle is actually responsible for is lifting up and rotating the hip. So when you walk or when you do any motion, your hips kind of move in a figure eight. And if these are locked down and tight, your hips can't move, so you're going to try to move with other things. Not only that, QL and adductor, which I'll talk about a little bit more, are tied together. So for guys that are struggling with their pancake or things like that, that flexibility in the inner hamstring, if you start stretching out your QLs, you'll notice that range will open up. So first Derek's going to show, because not everyone has a back extension machine, so we'll show a standing version first. So Derek's just going to stand with his legs slightly apart, okay? And really what he wants to focus on is he can put one hand on his hip, is really like reaching down. So you can start with no weight, because again, this is going to be intense for some people. They're going to get a huge stretch, but just really reaching that weight down towards the floor, and then think about crunching that hip up at the top, and then obviously we repeat for reps, and then switch sides. So yeah, that's really the easiest way to do it. And if you happen to have a back extension machine, then Derek can show us how you would do the same exercise with a back extension machine. We fortunately have one designed from Rogue that's exactly for this, but a normal back extension machine would work. So he wants to make sure that his hips are facing forward, so he's not rotated too much, and then all the range of motion and stretch is coming from right here, and then he's going to try to crunch his ribs and his hips together at the top. So obviously with gravity, this is going to be a little harder than the standing version. So again, even if you've done weighted here, start with no weight, and then you can see his QL, even his lat, stretching out, going down to the side, especially if you have the arm overhead. You might feel it all down, even the outside of the hip guys feel it. So
yeah, don't be surprised to be very sore.
Yeah, you will be sore.
If you're in back pain right now, don't start with this version. So if you look at my torso, like how much weight is my QL handling right now? Basically 0.
Right.
But then every inch you start to go this way, it handles more. So you can see there when Derek did it even more. So you're talking about twice the pressure.
Physics.
But you want to get that to where you're then adding weight to it.
Yeah.
A little tip here, if you notice my outside leg in front, this is not going to make or break the movement, but it can help make it strict. Because if you go here, you can go down and you can cheat and rely on your lower back.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you're here, you'll fall over.
Right.
So if you put this leg in front, you can't lean over. You're going to have to stay right there. And you can add weight to it, but as you get more flexible on some of these, you'll hit the floor.
Yeah.
So just bend your arm and absorb that stretch. You don't want to let the weight sacrifice the depth. And this is one that is really important to me because in basketball, I think from how much jumping we do, probably for you is with baseball, if your sport has a twisting component, you will often find tightness or weakness on one side, or tight on one side and stronger on the other side. And it's really rough, and you can be just doing motions of your sport, and you get hurt here. You get hurt on spins. You get hurt when you then jump off the leg you don't normally jump off of. Mess up. So this is one to definitely pay attention to and note like we've gone over with many of the other ones, don't say you can't do it. Just
Yeah.
start. I to this day, if I don't have a gym, I will feel that stretch
Yeah.
and get some strengthening
Yeah.
like that.
I mean, every sport has some rotation component to it, but if you're a rotational athlete, like a thrower or a tennis player, especially me with baseball, I batted right-handed and threw right-handed, so every single movement, my entire sport, was rotating this way. So my left QL is a lot tighter and a lot stronger than my right. Well, not maybe not a lot stronger now, they're balanced out, but even still tension, like I tend to want to rotate to my left, so my QL, even I think jumping yesterday,
Yeah.
Ben was showing me the plants, and I wanted to go to the side where I could rotate left because that's my stronger, just more natural, kind of coordinated side. So the QL is definitely big in that.
Yeah, and we superset the QL actually with groin,
groin.
stretching.
Yep.
We might as well just go over there to the
we
mat.
showed.
And Derek, you can
Taylor's
do this.
pose?
Here, I'll go over. We can
Either one. So the Taylor's pose, Ben will show seated, but with this one,
Explain why we're doing this.
yeah.
first.
So the reason we're doing this against the wall is because you don't want to cheat the movement again by like arching the low back a lot. So you want to make sure that your low back and upper back are against the wall, and it's just going to keep you honest. Then from here, you want to think about using the outside of your hips. Okay, so it's not just like opening up your hips and kind of being lazy. Use the rotation and the power of the glutes to pull, to actually think about pulling the knees down towards the ground. Again, it doesn't have to be maximal.
You can see the change right here just by using my glutes.
Yeah.
But that also shows that when you're playing sports,
You're strong.
Say you can't. I can actually use my groin flexibility and my range in
Yep,
sports.
exactly.
Key for lateral.
That's also
motion.
one of the biggest things with injury is the gap between flexibility and strength, which is what we try to really put, like, narrow as much as possible here at ATG. Is yeah, we preach flexibility, but also like being strong in that range. So it's one difference. It's one thing for him to be able to just get in the movement. It's a whole nother thing when he shows you that he can control it with the strength of his hips. That's the most important factor there. So really use the glutes to pull the knees apart. And so Derek even has a really good one. You can see his back's flat against the wall, and he's using his hips to pull the knees down. So like I was saying earlier, if you're really tight to this QL, this line, the QL in the adductor area here, they actually tie in together. So if you're tighter on one side of your QL, just take note. Generally, you're probably going to feel more stretch on that adductor and that groin area too, because they are tied in. So if you're having trouble increasing the flexibility of the inside of the hips, working on the QL will open that up. So this is the Taylor's pose. You'll hold that for a minute each.
Now we're going to the
Good.
last part.
So last part of this workout.
Actually, first
stretch.
Derek's going to show
Coach,
very important
Yeah.
stretch before this.
Yeah.
And-
So
why.
So kind of going back to earlier. So guys with back pain, what you'll notice the most is can they move their upper back? Okay. So what Derek's going to do, he's actually going to show you a modified cobra where he's going to go on his forearms. And the reason is, so he's going to bring his elbow directly under his shoulder. So if you want to bring the camera over, what you want to focus on is squeezing the glutes, because if the glutes are engaged, you cannot hyperextend the low back. Okay. And what he wants to focus on is actually lifting. Think about lifting his sternum, or like the bone or the chest plate right here in the front. Think about lifting that up towards the ceiling. If you're doing it right, you're going to feel the activation kind of between and at the very bottom of the shoulder blades. You should not feel it here. You should feel it mostly here. And so he's going to think about really lifting and kind of pushing his elbows or even his hands through the floor. And he wants to really, really focus on getting that feeling here. Again, we have a minute. Yeah, 60 seconds. So this will be first before we go into the cross bench. The reason is because the cross bench, we want to open all this range up here and then trap 3 as well. So that would be 60 seconds. So if you feel your low back, start as low as you can, and remember to lift the chest. It's not arching your back and pushing your back away from you. It's more lifting the chest is the better cue that I like for the stretch, and you should feel it in the middle and lower traps in your upper back, not in your lower back. So if you chances are if you do this and you only feel it in your lower back, when you squat, when you press, when you do anything else, you're using your lower back to lift. You're not actually using the development or like the muscles of the upper back. So then Ben,
Derek's going to
Derek.
cross bench.
we're going to show cross bench, and you'll see why that's important. So again, when we do movements, everything wants to be, you need it to be super controlled. So this isn't just about allowing the dumbbell to just pull your arms back. That would be a really bad idea. So what Derek wants to think about doing is there's a couple ways to do this, but probably dropping the hips and then lifting. He's probably thinking about lifting this up towards the ceiling, really pushing it up. So that's going to open up, again, your lats and your triceps. Like it's going to, this hole all through here, which can get really tight on guys, is going to open up. And as you can see, all this mobility is increasing here.
And it's standard. So there's only a few components of this program that has the standard. Derek's actually using just over 20%. We don't want you to go much over 20%. We'd like you to be strong enough to use 20%, but he's already been demonstrating every rep. His elbow and hip get down below his shoulder. So a lot of people will try to cheat this exercise one way or another. We're watching the elbow and hip. Is the elbow and the hip below the shoulder at the bottom?
And what you'll see is the bench too basically starts and ends conveniently right where your upper back is. So his neck's off the back of the bench and his lower back's off the bottom of the bench. So you should really feel your spine almost wrapping around the bench, and that's how you know you're doing it right.
If you lift this up, you can see why. You think elbow and hip. If your elbow and hip are incapable of going behind your shoulder, my God, your back is
The only place that you can bend is your low back.
right. So there's things we're gonna do, but a perfect program, you could actually be strong enough on your good morning and your Jefferson curl that you could be messed up in another area and still not have symptoms. But what we're trying to go for those elite levels of bulletproof where you're not getting little tweaks, you don't have a chance of injury. And then you can see how this opens up. Now what do we do next? We actually strengthen in that direction. So Jeff will talk while I suffer.
Yeah, so the trap 3 is probably the most humbling exercise that I've ever done in my entire life.
We'd like you to get, this is just over 5% of my weight each hand. That's actually what we're trying to have you get to
so
on this.
It's a good amount of weight for this, but you're going
For
to
the style that we're doing especially.
Yeah, exactly. So again, one thing that people kind of screw this up on is they want to bend from here. All right, so he's going to keep his glutes engaged.
This would be a cheating.
Yep.
Where's there? Now.
Yeah, exactly. You want to think about lifting your chest almost off the bench. Don't think about lifting
But
your
not
stomach
abs.
off.
Exactly.
Right. Your abs should stay on the bench. Think about lifting your chest off the bench, holding the weight up. This is going to be 6 reps for 6 seconds at the top. So where you felt it in your Cobra, you should feel it right here. Okay? You don't want to feel it down here. You want to feel it like mid to the lower part of your upper back. Not your low back, but the lower and middle part of your upper back. So you're going to feel it firing. You might even, this is why we do the cross bench, so you open up the tricep and the lats before you do the movement.
And it's very common to start athletes with just their body. As you can see, just right here, chest. So this is abs are against, chest off right there.
Yep.
Holding that right there, boom.
Yeah.
Magic for your back, your upper body athleticism. There's a difference between your bench press and your upper body athleticism.
Right.
So we've seen some of the biggest benchers we've seen.
Yeah,
That's it, right? So adding weight would be ridiculous, but you should be able to actively focus. And again, like any good regression, you can feel something happening, even without the advanced.
Even a lot of our women and older clients that we've worked with forget about putting weight in their hands. They're going to be sweating bullets just trying to hold their hands in line with their ears. They don't even need weight. That's going to be super challenging for them. So
if we recap now,
yeah,
because there's some little details here. Jefferson curl, again, we're getting you out of pain and from pain-free to bulletproof. But getting you out of pain, Jefferson curl is something you're not very used to. So it's very key that you follow these workouts the way we've laid them out, because now if you look at the upper body component here, we're now balancing that back out.
Yep.
So you're strong and flexible here for things that happen in life, but you're not going to be walking around like this.
Yeah.
So it's very important that you follow the workouts in order. I mean, if you look at this now, give me something.
Right.
What?
Throw something. He's playing football. He gets hit. He can go any way.
Where are you not protected? And I think,
And strong.
80% is a good rule. Meaning, if you have 5 injured guys, 4 of them don't need to be on the sideline. One of them does because he broke his nose or his hand you know, like things still will happen.
Yeah.
But I think out of every 5 injured guys, and this goes for the lower back, because maybe you were in a car accident or this or that,
Right.
but for every 5 people injured, painkillers, surgery, whatever it is, 4 of them doesn't even need to exist. And it would be nice to say, oh, once you can deadlift triple body weight, your back is imperfect. Yeah, but what happens when you go there?
Right.
People even think just because they're strong, even if you do have your Jefferson curl, but you have no QL, your groin is tight, and now you get, so this is gonna hit every different aspect. And we covered here, we really showed, I think we showed how to regress. For
Yeah.
cross bench, it would be, I think Derek had a version. So for women who are following this program,
Oh, the necks.
this is
Yeah.
a great program for women.
Exactly.
However, women often have really weak necks,
Yep.
and most people think that if your neck is here, that it's because you're weak here. No, if your neck's here, these muscles are under tension. These ones are never under tension.
Exactly.
So when you go back on the cross bench, your neck may be so uncomfortable. So you want to show them. You don't need to hold the weight. You can just show them a way. This would be a way to get used to the cross bench if it's a
Yeah.
little too freaky. So you can see his whole back.
Yeah,
His
so-
whole back is covered now.
Yeah, so his back's.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then now he can start working on that exercise. So again, this is just a way to regress it
Yeah.
because we don't want any.
Still arc your back up, still drop those hips
Yeah.
down, just to kind of get that same motion.
Exactly. And so if you
And
think
with
about
the weight,
everything
it'll
else,
really pull you down, get a good stretch.
yeah, and with everything else you're doing, and that's why I say you can do every one of these exercises. You just might have to regress it, but everything else you're doing is going to bring it up. And now,
And what he showed too is the reason the women have that issue is a lot of times if you can't bring your shoulders back here, what you're going to do is push your neck forward. We see that all the time on anything where you have to pull the shoulders back. If you don't have the range here, you go like this. You try to move your head forward, so that's also why that gets so tight. So this is really going to keep your head where it needs to be while you work on the shoulders. So
and Jefferson curl would be body weight.
Yep.
You can start body weight because, all right, what if I'm a fat ass? So
Right.
then what about that? Say the average person starts with 10 pounds each hand. What if I'm 40 pounds overweight?
Right.
That's already, masses. So just by getting these things used to the pressure, this is a Jefferson curl. Adding weight is not going from 0 to 10 pounds each hand. That's going from maybe 70, 80 pounds to now 90 or 100 pounds.
Yeah.
So, and we already went over QL, start body weight.
So definitely fix your posture.
Yeah, and I
Yes.
think, again, kind of I showed earlier, the thing with the back is remember you have 3 parts. You have your neck, okay, so your cervical. You have your thoracic, which is your ribs, your upper back, and then you have your lumbar or lower. And you have to remember that your spine moves, one way, it should move the other way. But what you see normally is people's upper back is tight forward and their lower back is like this. So what happens is you get a motion going this way, and then you get a motion going this way. So where all that tension is going to build up is right there where your lower and your upper meet, which is where most people never have back injuries here. Actually, I would probably say almost never. It's always neck or mostly lower back because you're tight here, you're like this, so you just want to kind of neutralize everything. So it's really that simple, So this program's from top to bottom.
Yep.
Everything you need for the low back. It was
then-
very in depth because we wanted to give you
Yep.
everything that we know as far as training the low back and what is actually required. It's not just this one simple thing will fix your. No, there might be a combination of things. There might be multiple aspects you have to do it. It might just be one thing, but as long as you guys know, you're going to get everything in this program that you could need for the low back.
Yep.
And still be able to get full training.
And then on your off days of training, Wednesday, Saturday, you're actually going through all of your stretches again.
Yep.
So you're giving your body a break from resistance training. But one thing that has gone really well with our ability rehab style programs is on your off days, keep working your stretches. Because if you're a human on this earth, your hip flexors are too. Every stretch here is too tight compared to the way God, the universe, wherever else you want to call it,
Yeah.
created our bodies.
Absolutely.
And our body, modern lifestyle just brings us like this. And this whole stretching routine alone has fixed back pain many times. But again, we're not just trying to fix the pain, we're trying to go to further layers where now you're reducing chances of ever having a problem again. And so that's what all the strengthening is going to put into place. But doing this on your Wednesday, Saturday off days, it is gold. That brings the whole routine together. We went over all the details.
And,
Lower back ability program is
Love it.
born. We've had now, I think like 150 unasked for success stories from knee ability program. Now, just as we've seen in person, we're going to be able to deliver a lot of these success stories for people's lower backs, which is a huge, huge problem.
There's no program like this on earth, man.
That's
Like,
for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Tackling every.
Not at all?
As always, let us know the
Yeah.
further ability programs you want. We really take our time putting these things together, but
And make sure, I mean, I know you guys are, but send us your successes, questions, etc. We post our WhatsApp, so you can reach out to us if you have any questions, if there's anything unclear, which I would hope by the length of this video, everything's gonna be crystal clear. But let us know how you go along, if the success you're having with it and your ranges and things like
Yeah.
that, so,
yeah, the value of a coach, so often just one thing
yeah.
that a really good coach, whether it's a skill or anything in life, I mean, having that coach, it can make all the
Elevate
difference.
your game to
This
another
is
level.
gonna work, so yeah, like keep us posted how
Yeah.
it's going. That's why you have all our numbers, that's why you send us your form each session.
Yep.
So, can't wait to see you guys in the gym, can't wait to see your lower back success stories if you've come to us to fix your lower back, and if not, we actually help lots of other trainers and stuff. This is really good stuff to
Yeah,
use
and
with your clients.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but
Yeah.
we were talking earlier, fixing your low back fixes other ailments that you have in your body too, like your hips, your knees, your ankles.
That's right.
Because structural balance is key. So once you fix one thing in your body works as one unit. And so all these exercises, if let's say your back, and usually if your back's hurting, one of your knees hurts, and then one of your ankles are hurting because your body's just thrown off. So once you get this, and once you get more and more in balance, then most of your ailments will disappear. So that's just kind of wanted to
That's
chime
right,
in.
I agree with that, it's a good way to end off.
100%.
All right.
As always, ATG's got your back.
Oh!
ATG's got your back. Connor wins.